Last game of the day. It is Astralis, it is NYYRIKKI. What is going to happen? Because Astralis didn't change a lot.
Well, NYYRIKKI didn't change as much either as some of the rest of our teams. These were both teams that struggled in spring. I think we saw a lot of development happening, but a lot of development that needed to happen. You know, these were teams that missed playoffs. They were teams that had, in the case of Astralis anyway, higher aspirations. You know, they were coming in as an academy team for one of our LEC big oars, one of these shining stars that's meant to be in our region, and they didn't really hit that mark. They had some better games towards the end of the split. They had some stronger individual performances. I'd actually say that NYYRIKKI to me seemed like a team which developed more overall. So now we have to see, okay, you've had some time off now, had some changes, got to rearrange some stuff. Who's come out on top of this off-season?
Before we jump into Champion Select, what is your final take in these two teams?
I'm gonna say, obviously, I think on the paper, I think it just still favors Astralis. I think they have the place, but as you mentioned, it's not as easy. I think NYYRIKKI, Asitor, maybe this guy can pop off. I'm not gonna say the forbidden word, 1v9, but I think Astralis is gonna take some.
That's a word? Is that a new word?
It's a new one.
It's a new word. 1v9.
Yeah. I know the word for a new word, though. Neologism is when you create a new word. Congratulations, you have now become like Shakespeare.
Thank you.
Well, we learned a lot in the desk at NLC. Welcome. So it's time to jump into the final Champion Select of the first way of Week 1. Astralis Talent versus NYYRIKKI. Both teams at the last part of the spring split ended almost at the last position. Now they have to show us who came on top. Just like Nightmare brought us up. Are we looking for the same bands? Are we looking for the same things? Because we still have Carlson. I'm not giving up on this storyline. Carlson is a beast.
He was, but he also wasn't the complete package. When he was playing on weak side, there were a couple of games. There was one game where he was playing Set versus Keks on Riddle's Renekton. He went 0-5 because he had to go weak side because he lost the early lane. Carlson, I think when he is given strong side picks, can be very, very dangerous. So I expect, again, NYYRIKKI to ban out something like that Gwen. Don't let Carlson have that amount of power. I think that's a good way to just make sure that Carlson isn't in that comfort zone of strong early laning champions.
All I'm saying is, I don't want to see Lucian on blue side ban. I did not get to see it. I do, however, see the Gwen, which kind of tells me maybe Carlson doesn't really play to perfection.
He's played it once or twice in Spring. Was much more of that Renekton, Camille player. Again, did say that was that one set game as well. I would have thought that the Gwen would have been a pretty easy setup, but maybe they're picking for somewhere else on the map. Actually, don't be fooled by the way. You see Senkux in the mid lane. That's what, of course, Crest used to go by all the way back in the day, just renamed back to that name. That is a name with a lot of history on it. We can talk about... In fact, I'm trying to remember if Diamond was on Senkux's UOL roster in the EULCS, because they were playing around that same time. I really should have researched that a little more, but this is, again, we can see some of these older hands continuing to be at it, and while we talk about all these first picks, Taxa did have a mean Viego in the last split still.
Yeah. And
Diego is kind of a good champion.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I guess they have to have the buff.
I might have blonde, I'll become him.
I guess they have to buff Lee Sin a bit more. Maybe Taxi first fix it then. He mentioned that in the video. He wants that champion to get even more buffed, but Viego just kind of broken. I think a lot of people in the video kind of mentioned that they wanted the champion nerfed, and this just shows it. First pick for Astralis.
So, we're seeing the Ezreal locked in for Astor very early. Now, Astor, for me, was the MVP of bot lane for last split. I thought he was insanely good, even on a struggling roster. This guy's Aphelios was one of the most impressive I've seen throughout the ERL scene. Incredibly powerful player of that. Talked a little bit about that bot lane, though. We're going to cut that point off because Xin Zhao has made a bit of a return. Not that powerful anymore.
Yes. It disappeared, and now he's back. It's you can always fall back to the champion that you feel comfortable with. This is a way to at least play comfortable, but it was kind of nerfed, I would say.
And this is usually what happens also in like first week, right? You pick kind of for your comfort. We see the Ezreal, both the Ezreal and the Z. So I actually remember screaming Asitra a lot, and it was literally Aphelios, Jinx, Ezreal, these three champions. I guess he could play a bit of Jhin as well. So he's just really likes the champions, but picking it blind kind of surprised me, and now ChrisBerg is going to get a free matchup with this Soya.
I feel like everywhere you play, that's the thing, right? Whenever we saw like the Ezreal blind pick, again, at high levels of play in the MSI, we saw like Kai'Sa picked into it and was like, oh, okay, this is kind of rough. Ezreal can't 1v1 versus a champion. The laning phase can get a little bit awkward. What are you actually picking this for? One thing you can blind pick though is Ahri. I get to see that. It's fun. It's my main champion. See, I actually get my main champions locked in this league. You don't get your Panther. Well, you had it the one time.
I'm sorry, what?
You don't get your main Okay.
I mean, I do. Only Trouble doesn't get to see her champion. Maybe she should pick another one trick.
She really just one trick about it.
M-Test told us that. I'm gonna use it. So, by the way, I'm going to get beat up.
Well,
and I cannot run away. That's the problem.
You know who else is going to get beat up, though? It's probably NYYRIKKI's bot lane. If you're looking at Ezreal Rakan, it's not always the best 2v2. And it's something like Isaiah. I think you can lose out on some of that ability to play through that 2v2 as the Rakan, because like if you dive into those feathers, you're not having a fun time.
Yeah. This just tells me again that NYYRIKKI kind of wants to play towards the top side. Maybe they save... I mean, I would assume they save the counter pick for last. But they still have an all-round comp to play for. They could play through the Ezreal Rakan on the bot side, but as you mentioned, not the best lane to play through, so probably just going to play safe. And let's see what Banderas has up his sleeve. I actually don't really have the best idea of what type of champions he likes to play.
So, I mean, at this point, you do have Red 5 standing by to give yourself a counter pick of some kind. You already know the Ahri's in there. Now, Aero in the last split was playing a lot of stuff like Victor, things like Rise. We've seen less of that as patch 12.9 has gone on. We're now getting to a point where, of course, for those of you that watched the series the other day, we'll have seen stuff like, okay, Vex was the older school, initial counterpick to something like the Ahri. Lissandra has now become a really strong mid-jungle combination of playthrough. When you have that Xin Zhao, immediately stunning someone in place, anything that sets up particularly well like that is very dangerous to play around topside for Astralis talent.
And at this point, you pick the mid lane, and I was expecting Lissandra. You need something to lock in the Ahri because you have a Xin Zhao. You need to provide that early game pressure and remove the Ahri from the game. So let's see what Hato is going to bring in. Well, there's the cage. There's some lockdown.
Okay, so again, this was another one of the traditional answers into Ahri. I am not a person who believes that Veigar actually counters Ahri. I think that if you're playing the matchup to the limit and you have something like a winning jungle matchup and a winning bot lane matchup, then the Veigar can't really do anything to respond to Ahri just shoving in and roaming elsewhere, or actually having the jungler come mid and making things kind of awkward with that. So for me, I'm looking now to see if NYYRIKKI can play around, potentially unlocking the Rakan to help that mid lane stabilize a bit, because once you reach mid game, start putting down those cages, that's when it becomes a very powerful answer to a lot of the more mobile picks which Astralis currently have.
So we blind pick into the top. You can counter the pick for Carlson. What do you reckon?
Oof. This could be anything from Banderas. Honestly, the first pick that came on top of my head is actually Urgot. I know when we casted Division 2, or I think it was with you actually, we saw Urgot popping off so much. I have no clue. I haven't seen it since then. It just kind of popped off there, and then I haven't seen it. But I would.
Okay, I
would be surprised if I saw it.
I get one LGL reference a day. DFM's top laner Ebby has always been an Urgot player. He plays that a lot into the Gnar. Gnar is a very squishy champion when he goes mini. If you ever get hit by that disdain, you are absolutely roasted. So yes, that's definitely a fighter option into it. I don't know if you can really pick something like an Aurelia nowadays, but something like the Fiora, this was something close to actually what Patoshka from last split for NYYRIKKI used to play towards that top side. Talk about fighter champions that can really deal with that mini-Gnar, push him out of side lanes. This is not too dissimilar from the idea that we had last game from Dusty, where you have strong side lane trying to play out a winning matchup, and you have a very stalling bot side of the map to play out a 3-4 man group with a cage, with range, stop them engaging, let the side lane do its work.
And if I may, this is a complicated game for Renata. It's really hard to bring the ultimate against the Xin Zhao versus a Fiora as well. I don't see the value in this. I do believe NYYRIKKI have the upper hand on this champion select.
Yeah, the problem I do see though with NYYRIKKI's draft is that they have kind of 3 scaling lanes. They have Fiora, Veigar, and Ezreal. I'm not really sure how Flipper... Actually, what am I talking about? Flipper, this guy just kind of takes his buff, then he goes gank. He's just going to do his thing. Like, he's just going to decide where he plays through. But feels a bit hard, but if they can get through that laning phase, I think they're
so far you guys have been right. Who's going to take this one? That is a good answer. M-Test.
I'm gonna go ahead and change my prediction, actually. I think NYYRIKKI takes this.
NYYRIKKI's going to take this.
I'm going to go with Astralis, actually. I'm going to fill in for Goldborg for today on that.
Believer.
I think it's going to be Astralis. I think that NYYRIKKI has too many, as you were saying, fragile early lanes. I think Rakan and Jinzhao need to be absolutely everywhere, and there's limited places they can be.
So the last game of the day is going to be NYYRIKKI versus Astralis Talent. Without further ado, I'm going to toss it for the last time for Initialize and Treble. What is happening, Treble?
She's upset that you mocked her Katarina maining, but let's be real, considering the state of the champion right now, there is a lot to mock.
You know, Taliyah has popped up in popularity in the mid lane. Do you know what is the #1 counter to Taliyah? It's Katarina. If you cannot
Congratulations, you found...
If you cannot solo kill Taliyah with Katarina in the mid lane, do not play the champion.
We're supposed to head onto the Rift at this point, and I'm going to give you this moment because you need it. You found one champion with your champion counter. I'm really happy.
Katarina counters Veigar and Taliyah. Take your free low. If they lock in one of the two, lock in Katarina.
Okay, you know what? Take the Katarina main's opinion with a grain of salt, maybe the whole jar.
Wow.
But I'm not wrong.
Wow.
There you are, we're onto the Rifts. Nice little tour of the various bits of wildlife. And of course, the constellations of this guy, Astralis, very appropriate considering their namesake being star. And then there's just a random, you know, skull with a cowboy hat in the hair, in the
But
air.
Astralis does fit the
It
star.
does, very much so. They do very well. Of course, speaking of Astralis, to drag it to the game now, you've had your moment to moan about the hate that was thrown your way for being a Katarina main. Astralis, question marks on this roster. They have switched out Wendell for Kiba, but aside from that, this roster has stayed the same from Spring. This is a roster with a lot of experience. The artist formerly known as Crest, formerly known as Sankux, now renamed Sankux, was an LEC mid laner for quite a while. Hell, he played alongside the likes of Diamond Prox and Gambit for a bit as well. There's stuff here. This guy's been around for a long time. He's been to Worlds, and Astralis last split did not deliver.
I think Astralis was, let's say it how it is, the biggest disappointment when it came to the NLC. We lost Fnatic as our second academy team, and then when Astralis joined the league, we're like, cool, we have a second academy team that's going to be extremely strong. The names are extremely strong, full of veterans. You've got Taxa in there. You mentioned Senkax. Krispek has won the Nordics previously. He's a champion of the league, right? So you're expecting to see really big results coming from a team that is formed out of 5 Danish players that are all veterans in the scene. And I feel like it all fell short, even from the fundamentals. The macro wasn't there, the decision-making wasn't there, the proactivity wasn't there, and it just all fell apart. At the point where Astralis started picking up victories. They even had a victory versus JDXL, who was almost undefeated at that point. By the time that this happened, they had already fallen down the deep end and couldn't climb back up the ranks. But right now, it's a new season. The fact that they have kept 4 or 5 members of this roster means that they still believe that the team can work. And I can't wait to see what Kiba brings to this new roster.
And this will be the first test. Remember, they started pretty strong last split, and then it really did fall away. See whether they can do it better this time around. Of course, NYYRIKKI have kept the bottom side of the map. Aero, Azitor, and of course, Abagnale are returning from last split, but Patoshka and Desidere have been switched out for Banderas and Flipper. Flipper used to play on NYYRIKKI. He was the guy who got them into Div 1 in the first place when they were promoting him, but he's back on the roster here. He's on the Jinzhao to try and offer a little bit of an early game bridging pick, right? To get some of these lanes through their early phases and get them to a point where they can be powered. He can hand over the reins.
And just so we can give a little bit of context about both teams and how they usually like to play the game, if you look at Astralis or any team that Krispek has been a part of, he is the main star. He is the guy that's sitting underneath the spotlight, and especially in the previous split, where all these hyper carries were flavor of the month, are so strong, you looked at somebody like Krispek who loves to play these types of champions to shine through. On the other side of the map, for NYYRIKKI, it is the same story for Azitor. We used to really commend him for the way he used to play the Jinx in the late game.
Really spectacular.
Yeah. He would pop off. We said if Azitor gets free out of his laning phase with items, there is no chance that NYYRIKKI can lose in teamfights with a Fed Jinx or Aphelios. Now, if you look at both teams, stylistically, they play the same game. They do like to play the front to back, but I'm really surprised because with Banderas slotting in, we also have Petoshka that very well...
He's a massive hero player.
The Riven, he does like to play the side lane. So I do like to see the fact that Banderas is slotting in with the Ergots, with the Fiors, trying to bring in that side lane pressure, whilst the 4-man core for NYYRIKKI is so strong and slippery.
Time to see whether they can make it work, though, because we've set up the stakes there. as Flipper will claim that second Scuttle Crab and leave us with that. And while we do that, we'll check in a little bit with some of our social media stuff. For NLC at home, that's your hashtag. Been told to ignore the coat hanger and Prime League t-shirt. Prime League t-shirt.
What?
Disgusting.
I didn't even read that, but I was about to say, is he wearing a Prime League t-shirt?
He is.
Does he know what he walked into? We're kidding, you're looking great, my dude.
You are looking fantastic. I mean, get yourself some NLC merch and we'll forgive you. But right now, of course, throw that hashtag up. Gonna see what we can get as a flash charm in the mid lane. Never mind talking about the Styles. Oh, we got Styles in the mid lane. Solo kill. He changes the name and Suncox gets himself on the board.
Okay, this is very early. This is 4 minutes in. Senkax with a solo bolo onto Aero takes his flush away as well, which means now that Senkax on the Ari is about to hit level 6, he's gonna become that more deadly now that Aero will not have the mobility. And Aero pays right there for trying to cancel that teleport. Senkax is gonna make sure that he solves in that lane as well. Thankfully for Aero, Abagnale was there to sort of neutralize the lane again and have his wave pushing his way. But all in all, this is going to be very difficult for Aero to push down his lane.
Handshake onto Abagnale. Of course, he is still a Rakan, so will battle dance his way over the wall and be just fine. Either way, First Blood goes over towards Yari. Of course, NYYRIKKI on the desk did say he considers this a skill matchup that Ari can win, even if it's a little bit tilted towards the Veigar. That's a great way to win out that matchup early on.
He said playing to the limits, right? I think Senkax played very well to the limits.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're trying to cancel my teleport, I'm going to cancel your HP bar. One solo bolo to Senkax, 5 for MNS, it's on.
Playtime was in fact over. Enough of that, it was all a bait. Now Taxa is a little low here, and Abagnale could potentially, with that Ignite, maybe cause a little bit of bother with Flipper around, but we'll be able to get back up towards his Raptors, and that's about that.
The only positivity that I can see about having the Ezreal on the bot lane, right, because we mentioned how Azitor is usually the hypercarry from his team, but right now he's sitting on the Ezreal, is the fact that, yes, Aero lost his flash, but Abagnale can be around to shadow for him and keep him safe, due to the fact that you have an Ezreal down the bot side of the map and he can stay relatively safe even underneath the tower or from distance farming. So, in the bad moments, always look at the glass half full.
Absolutely, we can do that. I also want to call out something of a bit of a history point here as well, because Chris Berg, back when he was winning, when he was one of the more...
In 2019 summer.
Absolutely. That was a part of that Xayah Kai'Sa meta. And he was not looking so great on the likes of the Caitlyn, the Jinxes, the Aphelios. Looked a bit more uncomfortable on those.
I can make it even worse for you. I can make it even worse for you. He used to play Kog'Maw as well.
Oh boy, there you go. I've seen what's happening in 12-10. So prepare for that in a week or so. But that sounds a lot more like what we saw Chris Berg really succeed on. Has already got an early play. And honestly, with something like this Renata behind him, can be pretty scary. Banderas has actually popped the Grand Duel. The top side doesn't really make a lot out of it, though. So that's just the ultimate down as well for this Fiora.
I think it was due to Senkax sort of threatening top side of the map. He had already walked too far up. So making sure that you put that ultimate down onto the Gnar, having the possibility of the heal and the sustain later on once you heal all the vitals, means that maybe even Senkax roaming towards the top side of the map will not result in a kill. And Senkax goes back into the mid lane. Good thing for Aero right now, the lane is slowly but surely pushing towards him. The only problem is because you have to play from distance, you have to farm with your Q. That means that your Q is going to be hitting 2 minions back to back. So you will end up sort of shoving in, unless Senkax wants to shove in the lane and sort of disappear into the wall, especially now that he has his ultimate up and available. Even just getting into the bush and disappearing, you don't know where this Ari is going, you have to respect.
And so the thing is, aside from that moment of individual brilliance we've now seen from Astralis, it's got the early Drake as well. 5 seconds until this Herald spawns. We'll see whether Astralis want to try and focus around that, and Tax is certainly thinking about heading over towards it with Carlson near the Mega Gnar. Feels about right. I was about to say, look, there hasn't been all that much action. That's always been a flaw we've had against Astralis, and when you've got something like a Fiora free scaling in that top side, that's a dangerous thing to do. But now we are seeing a bit of a proactive move towards a neutral objective, and NYYRIKKI look to see whether there's anything available towards his bot side, but there isn't really anything but a red buff to try and take away.
Yeah, but look at Astralis on the other side of the map. They started the Rift Herald, they secured the Rift Herald, they can choose to use it on the Ari in the mid lane, maybe pick onto the Aeros Veigar again, now that he doesn't have his flash up and available, pop down the Rift Herald, or even use it in 2 minutes when the next dragon is coming up, use it as a point of pressure, move into the bot river, establish your vision, and play like this. Now the thing is, yes, he only lost a red buff for Taxa, but he did secure secure his team a very major objective while also being ahead in CS and experience. So he definitely did not lose much in this trade, whilst Crispback onto the Xayah together with Kiba on the Renata is just a very difficult lane to even try and dive
Bait,
into.
bait, there it is! It's all a bait! They made it think as though there wasn't anything now, and Abagnale needs to get out, but he's just going to fall down. The heal, though, keeps him alive, and I spoke too soon. Flash burn from Kiba for a heal from Azator, but the Rakan will get out alive for now.
Yeah, and usually you want to make sure that your Rakan is on the map before the Renata. Renata is a little bit more squishier and doesn't set up quite the same way as a Rakan can. And you really want your Rakan to be around that mid lane when Veigar walks back in, where potentially Toxic could be. But they're looking towards the bot side of the map. They want to shove in this wave, potentially even drop down the Rift Herald, give more money into Crispback. Once this tower plate goes down, then bring in Senkax as well. They really want this tower to go down.
There's a ward in that Tri-Brush, and it's going to spot a lot of members coming the way of this Ezreal. He'll throw down the Arcane Shift. There's the Herald drop, and Azator now entirely out of mana. Gets a little bit of regen from the Biscuit. Now Abagnale going to try and get in there. It's a decent cage as well. Kiba taken very low. Throws down that bail out. It's going to be a 1-for-1 right now, but now the turnaround starting to come through. His Taxa is in trouble. Flashes over the wall to take away the body of that Veigar. Senkax can't quite secure anything more. Thinking about going over the wall, though, and Abagnale is here. Go over the wall, turret secured, 1-for-1, all things said and done.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you end up losing your support, but for what? Your Ahri gets yet another kill, so there's an insurgence of gold there. Every single turret plating Crispback was there for, from 1 to 5. The entire tower went down, and Crispback was the recipient of all the cash in as well. And if you look at the inventories a little bit, I see a Gale Force plus Zeal versus something that will resemble maybe a Trinity Force, but not there yet.
That is the plan, and of course, reminder, we did see Merbs do disgusting things on Xayah early in the day with a very impressive CS per minute going on. Senkax just gets out of that event horizon, throws down the Pengu as well, knows what's going on. Not Pengu, it's Feather Knight, that one. I forget, whatever the name of it is, I don't actually know the name of that TFT character. Feather Knight, I think. Possibly Pengu.
I don't remember. I could have helped you, but I really don't remember. Flipper, that's not your river.
It's going to take a lot of damage. That handshake comes through, and I don't think it was a great one. It's a deal with the devil. The turnaround, though, massive, and the bailout, not quite enough. Will not come back to that. Now, Crispback here, has got the Gale Force, doesn't quite get the pullback the way they wanted to. Abagnale taken pretty damn low. Aero trying to get some more time. The event horizon surely going to be up shortly. Is now going to trap the Xayah in the cage, but that bird cage opens again pretty quickly, and the wings are able to soar on out of there. But that's a kill that goes the way of NYYRIKKI. Still going forwards, though. Abagnale over the wall trying to help out, but now it's going to be 2 people dead. Abagnale trying to save his mid laner, and it's just not enough. Flashes to boot. Salt in the wound, and it is Crispback who just walks in and styles on them.
NYYRIKKI is just lost. What are you still doing in the jungle? There is no objective. There is no creeps into your jungle. And Flipper face checks a river that does not belong to him with no members around from his team. He's so lucky that he doesn't die right there to the Viego, because not only the reason will come from the Renata shield, but also he'd be able to take Xin Zhao's body and maybe continue the fight further. As I still don't understand about here why Abagnale and Aero stay around. They know that this route does not belong to them. They know that Crispback is still in this side of the jungle together with Kiba's Renata. So when a territory does not belong to you, does not have vision, there's no minions even in it at all. There is no objective to fight for. I do not know why NYYRIKKI stayed around and donated 2 kills to the main carry of Astralis.
You can see the attempt at the bait there. It just did not work, and it was just another kill. Gracefully donated as Banderas can lunge away. Does get out alive, but that is now another tower that's going to be offering up plates, crockery, to the increasing collection of Crispback, who just seems to be a fine collector of porcelain this game.
And as you can see, they're sort of like moving Aero around like a pawn. They're trying to find the safest
the old
lane
Caitlyn technique
for this Veigar to go around. He's already 0-3. He's been picked on the most. But what that does to Astralis is like, fine, let the Veigar try to farm. He's got what? A Kindle gem.
Right.
No damage yet. It's going to take a while until the Everfrost comes through, until any sort of real damage comes through from the Veigar. And then Crispback's not going to still care, because when the ultimate from Veigar comes through, he has his own ultimate to dodge that from.
He's going to get 10 plates.
Cashing in plates plates after plates, 5 on the bot side of the map, potentially the entire tower still on the top of the map. That is a 10 tower plating Xayah with 2 items almost completed. It's utterly terrifying because I'm looking at the team from NYYRIKKI and I'm like, okay, who kills the Xayah here?
I don't think anybody does at this point. I was going to make a Monty Python arrangement because that beautiful plumage is oh so deadly. Ironically, in that sketch, it was a Norwegian blue. They're up against a Norwegian team. Actually, sorry, it's the Finnish team, of course, NYYRIKKI from that. I've got it all wrong. It's all gone wrong. The reference is dead. Never mind.
You just said it, man. It just wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't. Either way, Astralis looking so much more proactive. Chrisberg looking so much more. Thank you. I appreciate it. I apologize to the people out there. I had thought I had a really good line, and it just wasn't, is what it was. Instead, we've got Sankux with 2-0. We've got Chrisberg, 2-0, 10 plates the name. And that will have to kind of replace my poor choice in reference. Astralis continue to shove in a charm in the mid lane alongside that Everfrost. Azator just deleted. Chrisberg now in trouble, but just going to Gale Force forward. Abagnale not quite dead. That will not be the reset. Chrisberg taken so low, but the damage back, my days. So much work done by the hostile takeover. And it's a mighty, mighty change in fortunes here from NYYRIKKI. Nothing left for them in this mid lane. 6,000 gold at 15 minutes.
Honestly, so well played right there from Kiba as well. The newly added member to this Astralis roster that fumbled last season. They're coming in with a statement game as well. The last second sealed to make sure that it revives Chrisberg in this fight as well. And as you can see, Senkax and Chrisberg, beautiful taunt again, this time onto Azator, the AD carry from NYYRIKKI. They take him down and Chrisberg manages to dash out of the taunt to not be on tower range anymore. And once they do kill Avro's damage is enough to be lethal because the Ignite is sticking onto Chrisberg. But again, a beautiful shield onto Chrisberg. He gets another kill, which means that he does get to stay alive through Renata mechanics.
Oh, yes. Bailout is certainly an ability. Keep an eye as well.
Bailout, there you go.
I got you.
For the name, thank you.
You're welcome. Also want to shout out, this is Abagnale's Ricard, something we praised every game we saw it pretty much last split, and this time around, yes, he's been a part of the only 2 kills they've got, but it's not found the impact they were looking for, and this game is way out of hand. So far in the bin right now, bluntly. Just look at that goal discrepancy, look at the tower discrepancy, look at the dragon discrepancy. I just don't know what they can do right now to try and get back into this.
I can see how this NYYRIKKI composition wants to work. You want to kite backwards. I understand and I see it, but I'm like, I don't feel like Ezreal, Zinzao, and Fiora deal enough AD damage to be worth itemizing against. So once you've got potentially an Anathema's chains onto this Veigar, or you potentially itemize a little bit of a Mar against him, then you're good to go. And Carlson is even bullying that Fiora that should have been a side lane menace.
It's just not there yet, and that was the other issue with NYYRIKKI. He said, look, you need to kind of hit a couple items on these champions. It's just not happened yet. Chrisberg gets caught, but there's a shield that comes through and he just doesn't take meaningful damage. Another tower goes down towards the Herald that is summoned. They're going to keep chasing forwards and try and get a second charge off.
Oh, you know it's doomed when the Xayah chooses to
the
event horizon.
Oh boy. Die. Yeah, exactly that. And that is a very frustrating point. And that is part of what happens when your Veigar, this sole AP threat, really goes 0-4. Dies with first blood solo in mid lane, trying to stop a back that was baited as a result of a good flash charm out of Sankux as well. And this looks pretty lethal, bluntly, from Astralis right now. We saw a stomp in the last game from Dusty. Astralis looking to show that they are also going to be a contender here in this split. Of course, not done yet. Still some room to turn around. That hostile taker comes over. Are going to try and immune. That was a decent parry, but now the turnaround puts Chrisberg on a rampage as he secures that one. And they're going to keep chasing forward. Senga's still got to charge on the Spirit Flash charm afterwards as well. Just styling in this game. A 5th death for Aero. Cannot catch a break in this game. Chrisberg gets out on 5% HP as well. Just can't do anything wrong.
Cannot catch a break as well. He presses his ultimate button onto Chrisberg, and Chrisberg survives on 1.
I know, right?
He's just so unlucky at this point. I mean, NYYRIKKI are trying to make do with the champions that they have right now, but it's just not possible at this point. It's almost a 10k gold lead, 8,000 gold lead for Astralis, and you see how this Astralis comp is supposed to work. You make picks. You see Flipper overextend. That's not a tanky Zinzao, and the second that he's popped his ultimate as well, you know that he's never walking back in because he doesn't doesn't have the safety of it anymore. Senkax and Chrisberg, the two carries on their teams, dashing forward, the flash for the charm onto Aero as well. Beautifully done. And honestly, unlucky for Aero, because his ultimate was just not enough to cash in on the shutdown that Chrisberg has on him. That would have been a huge insurgence of gold.
And now at Soul Point, there's an Ocean Soul on the line in under 5 minutes. They've got that gold lead we've talked about a lot. That momentum meter is all blue all day. It just doesn't feel like there's anything left to do. A Banshee's Veil now on this Ahri as well to continue to be able to dash forward through all of that CC and continue to make those charm plays that have been so critical to finding those initial picks.
Yeah, and as you can see, again, I just do not understand, and I do not know currently where NYYRIKKI are going to find the damage to kill anyone on the side of Astralis. It's just so frustrating because the second you move forward...
Gonna try and get in this. Might actually be a turnaround. Taxa is gonna get taken down to the bailout. Will not survive. He's dead. Asdor picks up on NYYRIKKI, trying now to escape best they can. Flipper traded out, so it's a 1-for-1 right now. Jungler for jungler.
Yeah, Taxa goes a little bit too deep right there. Ends up getting punished. The second I ask, where's the damage coming from? NYYRIKKI sets really deep inside their pockets, and they just pull out the coins. They put them all in the center, and they're like, listen, guys, everyone's gonna chime in on this one. We need to kill the guy who's diving deep.
Now, oh, Aero, no, you can't be there. Go away. Just don't be there. There's a flash and a hop. Just get away. That lane, that minion wave is not yours. Let's look at this again, because Astralis overdive a bit here.
Again, Aero pops the Predator. He's trying to catch at least Kiba. And by the time he's like too far forward, he gets caught, but the second Taxa overextends. Don't forget about the Rakan, don't forget about the Everfrost and Aero. They pin him into place and they assassinate him. And like I said, everyone chimed in for that kill because they all needed every coin in their pockets.
Kiba as well couldn't quite land the hostile takeover that time. The board on the opposing company decided against that particular bid. They get away with it. And also, let's be real here. I hesitate to say this as we're seeing maybe a little bit of an invade come through from Chrisberg and Kiba, but we saw Astralis get good leads last split. And then we got to the mid and late game where we started to see some pretty unfortunate overforces, some unfortunate objective setups, and yes, they were at a gold lead.
Surely
it should be. Well, you know, there were some similarities around some objective throws.
Are we too boomer to bring out the Dignitas reference?
I mean, I was a Renegades fan, and I watched that Renegades Dignitas game. So yes. Yeah, I mean, Alex Sitch was on that. Remember when I said my Diamond Proc stuff? Alex Sitch was another guy I really appreciated. He was on that roster, so yes. We're getting old here, yes, indeed. Go watch that game if you enjoy unfortunately bad games of League of Legends. Either way, what I was trying to get at was Astralis have shown, as recently as last split, a propensity for throwing big leads in the mid and late game. One play that went even certainly isn't that, but we need to see how it goes.
I just love the way that actually Kiba has been playing together with the team.
Really has.
Especially when you're integrating a brand new member into the roster. I didn't expect him to play to that extent. I think he has been fantastic. He has been hovering the map really well. He has been roaming the map really well. His vision set has been amazing. And it seems like he does fit the roster really well. The way he played bot lane together with Chrisberg looked really crisp too. And talking about, you know, Astralis throwing maybe mid to late game last split, at this point, I see them playing really well. They're establishing their vision. They're pushing together as a 3 or 4 man core unit. And at this point, NYYRIKKI, the members are so squishy that they can't afford to actually face check into Astralis' vision because one charm is the only thing that needs to land for somebody to disappear.
And you're right to praise Keeper. He's come into this slot. He's the one Twitch. And honestly, it seems to have made a pretty big difference. It's been a great Renata game thus far. It's not the only great thing we've been seeing. Because, of course, we've had some great social media stuff. As that's our friend Lara.
Oh.
It's a NYYRIKKI stand, no less. Look at that. Don't encourage him. His ego's big enough already, Lara. And there you go.
Shout out SK Merch at the back as well.
Oh, boy.
Really beautiful stuff.
Oh, dear. Well, Lara Leonardi, we love you. Well done. Thank you for that. NYYRIKKI is going to be very smug about it as well. There you go. Well, we've got ourselves 20 seconds until an Ocean Soul fight. We've got ourselves a last gasp potentially for NYYRIKKI as Abagnale is caught briefly there, but won't quite fall down on Senkax. Gonna walk up to that Fiora, gonna get charmed out of it though. Now try to turn it around, a lot of damage back, can't quite secure the kill though, but it's a big chunk onto that Ahri. I don't think it has the healing. Oh my days, that 2-shot barrage as well did quite a lot of work.
Okay, he's gonna take the honey fruit and he's going to
TP.
regen a little bit together with the pot that he has. But Aero just left the building, does not have the teleport. Oh, he's actually going to stay. It was Banderas that TP'd back into the fray. Full HP for both of them. Senkax is going to do the same.
Oh, that hook onto Flipper forces out the Crescent Guard. Carlson about to hit Mega. Takes a bit of a chunk, but it's not that much as yet. Looking to go forwards, can't quite find the Mega. Banderas looking to try and hold his ground as Flipper has to flash out away from Sengox's charm. He's down and kept so far away from this Dragon. There's just no way in. Sengox plays bodyguard. Now they're going to try and turn this around best they can. Dragon secured, Soul secured, hostile takeover. Doesn't really get as much damage as they want. Big charm. The cage is decent. Sengox goes golden. Now Flipper into the front line, dies, and Taxa will take the body and start charging on in. A double for Chrisberg, and the Heartbreakers keep landing. Chrisberg start throwing out even more feathers. A triple. Could this be even more? He'll throw out the blade store. The feather caller, I apologize, trying to get another. A quadra kill indeed. Banderas alone remains, but I'm not sure the Penta is going to be quite on the cards, yes, unless they want to fountain dive.
Is it going to be a fountain dive? Chrisberg.
They're going to look for it.
Showing week 1 with a quadra kill. They're going to make sure that they take the next towers first, but Flipper is spawning in 3 seconds. You cannot flip this dive.
They can't. He's respawned. The pentakill seems to be off the table. They'll settle for the quadra. They'll settle for showing him exactly how it's done. It's unofficial. It's not enough, but Astralis, nonetheless, come up with the win in the final game of day 1.
Absolutely, and that is what we wanted to see from Astralis in Spring Split, but they keep 4 out of 5 members in the roster. They add Kiba, and honestly, it has been a pleasure to watch this guy complement the rest of the roster. The laning phase together with Chrisberg was really, really well played. The way he was moving around the map, shadowing Senkax, setting down the vision, making sure to spot wherever Flipper was. His ultimates were insane. His shields were insane. The bailouts too. I think this iteration of Astralis looks really, really strong, and honestly, I cannot wait to see more from them.
They've done a great job in this game 1. They decided to take the call to keep the roster mostly together. The new member, Kiba, has a great showing as well. And it's a good win for them to end out our first day. But we've still got a little bit more to go. Time to cool down with this, you know. And to do that, the analysts are sitting just over there. We'll throw it to them.
And welcome back. That was a dominating game from Astralis. They completely took over the entire game. No memes aside, or no pun intended on this one. What a stellar way to end day 1 from week 1.
I mean, we thought that other game was really, really quick from Dustin. It's like, hang on. We actually ended up with some really dominating games, as you were saying. There are other words for it, but that seems to be the easy one to go to because, gosh, they were not close.
I have to say, though, I kind of feel bad for Flipper. He was playing the Sinsa, wants to be this proactive jungler early, right? But had kind of 3 scaling lanes. It's a bit hard. I learned my lesson. I'm never going to change predictions again. Yeah, it was such a dominating fashion.
Yeah, and I like to think that my prediction of Veigar doesn't counter Ahri came true. Although I didn't quite expect Aero to walk up and kind of give up a bit of a freebie at level 4, but still, Senkox had a magnificent game on the Ahri.
And we were talking about that. Changing your name back to what it was gave him a buff, like a +5 to engage and all that. And he was screaming. Nightmare was screaming on the green room as soon as the 1v1 appeared in the mid lane. It was like, aha! Veigar doesn't counter Ahri, it's the opposite. You were saying that in an old man's voice.
Okay, true. I did quite expect it in that situation. That is like, that also shouldn't happen. Would like to make that clear.
What do you think? What do you think at the end of this game?
That's just how the matchup goes, right? Veigar and Ahri, you just have to get killed alone, level 4. That's just how the matchup goes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
And I would like to ask something, that because it seemed like the composition from NYYRIKKI didn't have a lot of answers if Astralis got the lead. And as soon as they did got the lead, there's nothing they could do.
It felt like, again, I think what you kind of brought up earlier, just in terms of like those fragile early lanes. Now, the way you typically get around that is like, okay, maybe a support and jungle can turn up somewhere and kind of give an injection of gold when they turn around an aggressive play just by being in the right place at the right time. That didn't really get to happen either because Senkox was already taking control of the lane, turning up to places like that bot lane very, very quickly. So even that, the numbers advantage potential, just wasn't on the card. So for me, it was a case of a little bit of draft, also a big player gap too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And as you mentioned, like when you have these 3 losing lanes and then you're kind of losing just on your own, just especially in mid where like the game has always been centered around, it just makes the game almost impossible to play from NYYRIKKI's side. So I think they just have to kind of go back to the drawing board and see, like, because in League it's just, early game is kind of simple. You just have to draw at least one winning lane and play through that with your jungle. And then it's in the mid game where it gets a bit complicated.
Early game is simple.
Yeah.
Quote that.
It's a better quote than the 1v9, I would got to say that one. Moving on into the interviews for the winner side for Astralis, we have the coach Vandetto with us in the studio. Hello, how you doing?
Hi, guys.
Hello, pleasure to meet you. Obviously, that was an amazing startup for this split. We were talking about fast games, and NYYRIKKI was bringing the fact that we had a really fast game previously to this one, and you guys were like, okay, hold my snaps, I'm going in. So this is a good day for Astralis, isn't it?
Of course, yeah, it's a wonderful day. We're very happy to get the first win in a convincing way, you know? And I think it's partially due to a lot of hard work we've been doing over the weekend. We've been working on closing out games. So against, we've been screaming a bit against some good teams and learning a lot. So, yeah.
Okay, I have a specific question. That is, last split, we got the hype train from Astralis at the first week, second week. We were like, oh, Astralis, top 1, top 2. Are we getting baited again?
I don't think that this season is going to be a bait. I think that we have a great roster, great synergy with the guys. We're working really, really hard, and we want to correct last season and make this one the best that the talent team has ever had. So that's the goal.
Okay, last question for you, NYYRIKKI.
Yeah, so to hop in here, obviously, we actually haven't asked this question to anyone else on the day, but we have a big patch change coming up. Of course, your job as a coach, you're going to have to guide this team through it, and part of having potentially what you're aiming for in terms of that best split for this roster, how have you gone about preparing for the next patch, the durability changes, and how are you feeling about it?
We've been screaming a bit on the patch, actually, even though we were going to play on the old one today. I think the patch is really interesting. I think that one of the biggest changes is like the tankiness from obviously the tanks, and then also the turret changes. I think tanks are extremely hard to dive in cross map situations. I think enchanters like Yuumi are looking pretty good, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a enchanter meta, but who knows?
Can't wait for Season 5 Cho'Gath Maokai meta to come back.
Thank you so much for the interview, Vandetto, and good luck for Astralis. You guys are looking good. You guys are looking fast as well. You end up the game really fast, really hard to take anything from you. So let's see what Astralis is going to bring in this split. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I love the idea that Astralis is working to end up the game, to wrap up games when they have the lead. And this is something that you really need to practice as a team, right, M-Test?
Yeah, I mean, this, as I mentioned, right, early game is easy. Late game, not so much. And actually, like, I guess playing like late game team fights just all comes down to basically micro and how, I mean, obviously how well you play the fights as a team. But closing out games is actually something that I've been struggling with so much in the past. You had like your lead. You're like, maybe you're not even expecting to get a lead in the early game, and then you do it, and you're like, wait, guys,
you must get a lead in the early game, because early game's easy, right?
Oh, yeah, that is true.
And you won V9.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying that about other players. I cannot take that on myself. But, no, all joking aside, I think what that said just makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's been around in the scene for a long time. I spoke to him actually in the past as well. He seems like a mature guy. Pretty sure he knows what he's doing.
So you're really confident in this Astralis composition right now, the roster?
I think if you compare it to last split, it's hard to not get hyped when you see a game like this where they just completely...
Even though you're from Sweden.
I mean,
just want to know that.
I mean, that's the thing, Arkram. I cannot cheer for a Swedish team because there is none. What am I supposed to do? I have to.
You go for Danish team.
Yeah, I mean, actually,
that's
the ultimate.
From
that's
NLC.
The ultimate.
I got you. Okay, on the other side, though, NYYRIKKI, we need to talk with them. We need to talk with Sotze, which is also the coach. So it's really good for us to get the information coming in from the coaches. Hello, how are you doing, Sotze? Pleasure to meet you.
Hello. Pretty good. I mean, not happy about the game, but it's looking good.
Okay, I have to be honest. That was a tough game for you guys. As soon as the early game disappeared from you, it was really hard to get anything from Astralis. What was the core plan with the composition that you draft?
I mean, the composition obviously was looking to scale into the mid game and try to deny their ability to get pick on us and be able to zone them with the tools that we had, like the Vega Cage and so on. And obviously, like play through the side, like we had very strong side laner. Of course, that could not happen if we fall that much behind in the early game, and that's what we will need to work on more.
So we've obviously talked a little bit before, Sotze, and I've managed to follow a little bit of the journey of NYYRIKKI over my own casting career. Last split ended up having to kind of scale up into your understanding of the meta. Actually, in the NLC qualifiers just before that, very similar thing happened. Actually, it's been a very common thing for the roster over a number of years. Do you think right now you're kind of a little bit, you're still kind of trying to catch up with the understanding of the meta yet again? Is this something which you're prepared to do, especially with the durability changes coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we are always been like a slightly slow like team to adapt to the meta, possibly to do like the scrims that we do, but we always catch on, and we are really good when we get the catch on. Like same situation happened against Astralis actually last split, like first game of the season against Astralis, really shit meta read, and we just get back on after a while.
And this is something that I wanted to talk about as well. So good take on that topic, because now you as a coach, you have to prepare for the previous patch, the one you're playing right now, and the durability patch. So you have to prepare against two patches. Are you focusing on the next one, or you're still trying to get the players on the one we're living now? And you're like, okay, maybe we can sacrifice the first week and then look into the second for durability, or are you doing double shift to prepare your team for the two different patches?
I mean, especially in this case, but I would say that's the same approach that we'll take in any split. I don't really focus too much on the patch in the early on, unless like I am able to like see on the roster very early, like having like 1 month of training or so on. But like the way that I would approach it, especially with rookies players that we always bring on as in NYYRIKKI during the splits, like I do focus on like keeping the champion pool short and just playing comfort, and then focusing on how to play them up as a team rather than like going over to exploring all the possibilities that the meta offers.
Okay, last question for you as well. Since you're talking about a champion pool and the way you guys prepare and the way you guys bring games into us, what sort of personality can we expect from NYYRIKKI throughout the rest of the split? Is this a team that is going to face off the 1v1s, try to headbutt the other teams? Are you looking for more macro? Can we get any sort of insight of what we can expect from NYYRIKKI?
I mean, I do think like the NYYRIKKI that we're gonna bring, it's gonna just be a better version of what we showed through like the wall way, through the NLC, like from the Telia Finland, Telia Master, NLC qualifier and so on. We've always been like a very aggressive team, macro-oriented, like skirmish heavy, but focused on like getting good plays on, like and with the swap of the player, nothing changed. Like we got back like Flipper on the team, and we swapped top laner, but very similar approach to the meta, to the game, to the way that we play, like skirmish, like Caritas planers, like we're gonna just play clean macro and play 2 lanes and try to get it up on top with that.
Okay, good to hear. So thank you so much for that input and getting to know what we can expect from NYYRIKKI and getting to know you as well. So I'll see you soon, and good luck on day 2 for week 1.
Thank you, thank you.
There we go. This is lovely. Like day 1 is mostly about getting to know the changes, the new players, the new coaches as well.
A lot of
play
learning.
Style. Yeah,
an awful lot of learning, which obviously makes our job easy and hard because we can pretend to be idiots and go, wow, we didn't know this about XYZ player.
We can pretend.
Some of us can do that. So you're now the smart one between us. Good luck with that.
Yes.
That is.
I learned my way to go about champion selects with him now.
Let's go. What I was gonna say is actually it's kind of interesting. Also, we have so many new players, right, which we don't really know yet, and we're gonna get to know them. But it's also so interesting to see all these personalities behind the teams as well, to get to know the coaches a bit more, and the way that they're talking about the game. I just feel like they are I mean, I guess you have to be passionate about the game to be a coach, but it's just nice to hear.
And I actually, in off seasons, a lot of the time, I go out of my way to message a lot of coaches and just say, how's it going with your take on the meta? And because obviously that helps my understanding. It helps me get an insight on the teams as well. Also, we've had Tark a lot on the broadcast. Sotze, as I said, I've kind of chatted to him a number of times over the course of various splits. Old coach of Astralis, Donby, talked. There's a lot of people around who, again, just this plethora of information comes in, and so many different takes on what has been quite a standard meta for the last split. It's really interesting to dive into and see how that affects the players we see on the Rift.
And we saw a lot of things in the Rift today, but we have to pick one specific play for the play of the day by MasterCard. Which one is it? Let's take a look at what we decided was the play of the day. We know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. None other than M&S.
Yeah, I think we knew what was going to happen. X7, they should have known what was going to happen because you do not go after, I mean, we use the word a lot, the king of solo kills without having an inherent risk. If you give him a chance to mechanically outplay, he absolutely thrives in those situations. He's back again.
Props to Senna, which sent the ultimate to get the shield, okay? She was part of the play as well. It was not a 1v2, it was 1.5 versus 2, I would say. But seeing M&S again in this core essence of the solo bolo king, and I was kind of confused in the playoffs. I'm going to be honest. I lost my faith in M&S. It's coming back slowly, but it's coming back.
It's just so scary to have to be able to play against a player with a caliber like that, because you're never sure what he's gonna do, because there are so many players. I would even say myself, whenever I play competitive as well, I would play always a bit more passive in the competitive games. I was a bit scared, I'm not gonna lie. But when you see a player like this, just completely, he does not care. He's just completely popping off, just out playing left and right. It's just beautiful to watch, man.
Anyone who's ever played Flex with me, or Tom Kick, poor person I played in a team with before, knows I'm absolutely massively aggressive beyond what's really normal at that point. People tend to be different on those big stages, though, on those big games. That's the core of the point. And I think you are right to bring out like those games in plus from M&S last split. I think we saw that M&S had a wonderful laning phase pretty much throughout the entirety of spring, but there were some areas of the game where maybe in terms of linking up with the team, we even saw in that game, he wasn't there for a Baron after that play. There are some disconnects between the team and M&S in terms of trying to slot him into there. That's the next step, but if he does get to that point, holy moly, is he on a very star-lit trajectory, because we can see what he can do when he's given that space to perform.
This is a player that if he can rise to the occasion, there's no stage that can stop him. I could see this guy at Worlds if he gets to the next place. There's a lot to work, obviously.
Cool to see. Be cool to see.
That's a lot to work on, but it's the NLC, it's the RL that we're looking, the Northern League of Legends, and now, where is the standings? We need to understand where the teams are. Obviously, we have half at the top, half at the bottom. There we go. Astralis first place.
Hey.
Next 7 at last place.
Riddle, what's up, guys? You're not top of Group B. What's happened?
It is week 1, day 1, obviously, but it's good to look into the standings. And to me, I have a few surprises. Obviously, GDXL versus X7 was always going to be
Crazy.
a coin flip. We never know what's going to happen, and it was a lovely game from GDXL, but we also need to understand how X7 are going to pop off on the second day of week 1. Is this what you guys expected to see at the end of the day?
By and large, yes.
Okay.
I think that maybe the M&M Dusty one could have gone a little bit weird. Look, there were some more flippy matchups. Nothing here screams to me huge upset. Wow. Partly because we didn't have a good benchmark in the first place. That's not trying to water down the point, but on the whole, things kind of went towards that, went towards expectations. I think many people will be looking at this from the outside, going, "What the hell's happened to X7?" I'm like, it's one game. It's
one game. Yeah,
against
obviously.
Very strong opposition. It's the trial period. Got to give it like 10 to 15 days before we really get to the point where we start seeing the measure of these teams within this new patch on this new split.
No, that is true. And I mean, it's a part of it, right? When we see X7 being down like that, we have to give it to them. We have to say something, right? But of course, it's I'm not gonna say the name. I'm not gonna say the scaling name again. But X7, obviously, it's not the end of the world. They were playing with a sub as well. I'm just excited to see each and every one of these teams actually, like even Singularity would last season we didn't really see them have an identity, and already today they were showing that they wanted to play for topside on this. They were doing it kind of well until it fell apart.
No. Singularity's identity was the Singularity Zone, which is like, for those of you who've ever been on the Tower of Terror like theme park ride, it's basically that. It's the Twilight Zone. We just pick out a random champion into the jungle. That's basically their identity. I find it very entertaining. It's just, again, finding like the coherent identity across that team. And again, like as we said, spring was our split of identities. It was finding out about the players and teams. Now it's about taking that step further and actually solidifying that and refining it. You've got your overall kind of blob. Let's chisel something out of it.
And taking a step further, it's for the next day. The schedule for day 2 of week 1. What games are we going to get? We start with M&M versus X7, Team Singularity versus Riddle. This is going to be a good one. JDXL versus Vanir, NYYRIKKI versus Dusty, and Bifrost versus Astralis. This is a hot take for Astralis.
That's hard. That's a hard one, because I think what we saw out of Astralis today, if they are managing to show what they showed on stage today, Bifrost Astralis should be really fun. And if it's Bifrost, they're going to give us a heart attack as well. So that'll be interesting.
That is, yeah, that's for sure. And also today we just saw Astralis kind of winning every single lane. They were playing against NYYRIKKI, right? And they were, I mean, obviously, I would say it was quite a big draft gap. But you mentioned as well that both Shikari and Fury were having some struggles in the early lane phase. And if Astralis can attack that and make like a chink in their armor, maybe Astralis can just go out with so much hype in week 1.
Last words for the day. I'm going to start with you, NYYRIKKI. You're going to wrap it up.
The more things change, the more things stay the same. Great to be back in studio. Great to see the players on the Rift, and great to see all you guys as well.
Yeah, I mean,
And you in chat, I see you.
Menacing.
I do. Honestly, I've just been having a blast. It's just been super fun, and you guys are just so professional. So I'm really happy to like have been part of this. It's really nice. I'm gonna go out with Scaling, 1v9, Copium, and
test out, Mike.
Yeah, and so yeah.
Hey, he's learning. He's got the NL Copian. He's got the NL Copian. And you guys at home, you guys are amazing. So I'd like to thank every single one of you for the show you were part of. Obviously, the pictures from the NLC at home were beautiful. So keep sending those every single show day. And I'll see you Wednesday. NLC says goodbye. I'll see you soon, mate. Here comes trouble.